thanks for coming out today. This is a fun day. Typically, we have what's called a One Sioux Falls media briefing on Wednesdays, and we had this lined up to talk about the year in review. Now that we're in December, what's happened in Sioux Falls in 2024? We're going to do it at City Hall. And we said, you know what? Is there a place we can take this thing on the road? And this is no better venue than the canopy here at the Steel District. And I'll mention this later in a couple remarks, but when I took office in 2018, I had announced I was going to run for mayor about 9 months earlier. And shortly after I announced that, one of the first people who reached out to me wanted to meet with me. It's like, all right, he's a candidate, got to get my hooks in him and see what this guy's about, was Scott Risden. And I had known Scott a little bit, but Scott and I met at Minerva's, and he wanted to talk about this vision and what I thought, and would you be supportive of this work and tax increment financing and this stuff. And that was 2017, and so today, here we are, first day of the canopy, and really kind of the culmination and the flagship facility of the Steel District. Visions take time. Like, this work takes time, and big things take time. And that was my meeting with Scott in 2017. You know, Craig, you guys have been meeting with him for years and years prior to that. So the community just continues to dream and think big. And so there's really four themes that I think when I look back on 2024 that are important. And I want to talk about each. I want to talk about well-managed growth. I want to talk a little bit about how we're responding to some challenges and how we're doing that efficiently. I want to talk about casting a vision, and I want to talk about what's probably the most important that leads to things like this, and that's collaboration. So first off, well-managed growth, you know, we had a $773 million budget that we approved in 2025. And so large budget, not quite as big as our previous year budget, but a big budgetary win for us this year was the failure of IM-28, which had us all a little worried on what was going to happen if that had failed, and that failed. And so we also surpassed $1 billion in building permits. We just did that this past week, actually. And because our growth is well managed, people want to continue to invest in Sioux Falls. So we use the phrase a lot, how do we keep Sioux Falls investable? And we continue to see that. We see that with the state one-stop, $71 million facility from this past year. That building permit of Aaron Louise, their GI medical building, that's a $54 million project. We also see that in the JDC, Minnehaha County is building. That's a $31 million permit. So we've had some big permits this year to get to that $1 billion mark. We also have to look at how we're managing growth well with our utilities. And one of the biggest things we're working on right now is we've completed year 2 of the 3-year water reclamation plan expansion. And I feel like I've been talking about this forever, Mark, but this is a massive initiative because as we have economic development discussions, housing discussions, the first thing developers want to ask, whether it's housing developers or site selectors, what's your wastewater capacity? What's your wastewater capacity? It's the first question. And so we're also looking at our water and what our water situation is going to be in the long term. We're building well 25 this past year, which we anticipate will be the largest water producing ground well for the city. We expect the first phase of that to be complete next year in 2025. We've improved more than 45 miles of road in Sioux Falls this past year in partnership with the DOT. A big part of that, first stretch of Veterans Parkway just opened a few weeks ago. If you haven't driven it, man, it's a smooth ride, man. That is from Western to Cliff. It's an incredible infrastructure investment that is just getting started as we complete the next sections. We opened 2 diverging diamond interchanges this past year. That may not mean a lot to Joe Public, but I will tell you the traffic flow, wait times has been reduced. Our accident counts have been greatly reduced where those diverging diamonds have been put in, and more to come on those as well in this next year as we continue to invest at 85th Street and I-29 with the diverging diamond there. And we'll hopefully break ground on that this spring or summer after we bid. We resurfaced more than 630 blocks of streets in people's roads and neighborhoods for smooth commutes. And We also improved our pavement index score this past year. This is a real nerdy thing, but it's something that we look at really, really closely to determine the quality of our biggest asset, which is our road network. And our pavement score increased this year to 73 out of 100. Now, put aside your educational hat and say, well, that sounds like a C minus. No, no, no. 73 out of 100 puts us on the higher end of the national average. The highest end of the national average is usually 65 to 75. So our road conditions continue to be very, very good in Sioux Falls. Thanks so much to our Public Works team for that. We also reimagined public transit this year, partnering with VIA, a company called VIA. That's now, for the first time in the history of the city, we have transit access available to 100% of the city. Is it perfect? No. Is it innovative? Is it new? Is it an entrepreneurial approach to a wicked challenge? It is. And we launched SAM Reimagine this fall. Our ridership's increased 10% since we launched this system just a few months ago. Housing continues to be an integral part of our conversation. Had several wins in housing this past year. Our housing team, we completed over 270 different housing-related projects that impacted almost 900 different people this year to help them get into housing, whether it's affordable housing, move-up housing, workforce housing. And we also, we dealt with the hard conversation of the 600 Plaza building. And that building ultimately came down, and it's going to be replaced with housing. Housing for people who are in lower income brackets, along with a partnership with Southeastern Behavioral Health. And so we reimagined a block that for many, many, many years was a huge challenge in our community. And I love looking at the heat map of calls for service from several years ago, and now looking at it now, and it's cooled tremendously there. And so that's been a big win. So we're also responding to challenges efficiently. We had several 911 outages this year. And we just had a meeting with legislators this week to talk about that, talk about the state contract with our 911 backbone provider. We had flooding in June. Seems like a long time ago, but we had another large flooding event. Remember, we had 150 of our employees step up and help with that. I asked people not to shower or flush for a few days. You listened. That really helped us get our water rec plant back under control. And so the community continues to respond to those natural disasters. We hired a new health director in Joe Kipley, and then about 4 days after he started, the Lord sent the plague of mosquitoes on Sioux Falls. And you remember that. And Joe learned other duties as assigned, and that's you're the mosquito guy. And I know it's funny to laugh about, but within a week, our teams responded, and we went from plague-like mosquito infestation to you could go on walks again and be back in parks. And the response from our vector control team was incredible. We also dealt with some tough conversations around homelessness and how we'll continue to do that work. We hired the city's first homeless services coordinator, Michelle Treasure, this past year. And her work has been to be a quarterback and strengthen collaboration with all the partners that are doing this work. The family units for Bishop Dudley opened at the former Children's Inn. They're housing families there right now. I talked to them on Thanksgiving Day. They have one family there with 6 kids. But for that place, it would be in the back of Bishop Dudley right now. And that is not a good place for kids and families, and we know that. And so to all the partners who worked on that, that's been a home run in helping with our homelessness challenges. A lot of continued work with ICAP on that, so I want to give them a shout out. And we deal with challenges like crime. We've had a record number of homicides this year. And last year, we had a near record low number of homicides. We had 2. And so crime ebbs and flows. On a lot of other statistics, whether that be violent assaults, aggravated assaults, domestic assaults, we're down. Stolen vehicles are down almost 15% over last year because we've been pounding the podium on that and telling people, lock up your cars, okay? Take your keys out of your car. Don't leave it running at the get and go. And as a result, we've seen a drastic decrease in stolen vehicles. A big focus for us continues to be recruiting police officers. And how are we recruiting more men and women to the city of Sioux Falls to do this work? It's a challenge. And the chief is here for questions on that, but So far, we have seen 450 more applicants, or excuse me, 450 applicants this year compared to 390 the same time last year, and 273 the year before that. And that's due in part to, you've seen an ad campaign that we're running. Say, answer the call, be part of your community, give back through a career in law enforcement. And we'll continue to look for innovative and creative ways to make sure that we're fully staffed and that we're taking care of the public safety needs of the community. We've also been working this past year on casting a vision. And I think that's why it's so fitting that we're standing in here, because a big vision was cast for this exact site over a decade ago now. And part of my job is to think big and to move the community forward. And just like Scott did that day that we had lunch at Minerva's. But these visions take a long time. I want to also point out, but for tax increment financing, this project probably does not happen. Tax increment financing is such a critical tool that we have. Those 900 parking spots that are supporting this development do not happen without a TIF. And now we have this project putting sales tax and ultimately, eventually, property taxes back onto our tax roll, and it's an incredible home run. So a lot of times we only talk about TIF on the front end. This is the result of that, and that's why it's such an important tool for us to use in the future. We're also continuing to cast a vision on the Riverline District and what could be at the Riverline District. We know now what could be, what could have been at Sioux Steel a decade ago, and now here we stand. And we have that same opportunity with the Riverline District. And I'm excited to see what happens with that and where we go in the future on that. We've cast visions on things like the Barb Iverson Skate Plaza, this River Greenway, Lloyd Landing. And so a lot of big visions have been cast in our community, but there's been a lot of people that have been a part of that. It's not just a mayor, it's not just a developer, it's not just a city council. It's all of us working together on this. So for the first time, I would say our community story is being told in kind of a unique way. And I'm a marketing guy by background, and I love the brand that we're starting to develop. You can go around the country now and say, where are you from? I say, I'm from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And people know Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And they've heard good things about Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And they ask about Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I say, what's the secret sauce there? I've heard good things. What's happening there? I hear the crime is very manageable. Here's a lot of investment happening. What's going on? And that's because we're working together as a community. We've polished some of our marketing over the past several years. We have a city flag. We have a new city logo. We have a new city brand. And just in the last couple weeks, you're going to be seeing a marketing campaign that's going to be rolling out that brands the city as one of the top employers in the region. And so I want to steal a line from our marketing campaign, and that's, we have jobs at the city with a future that make history. And it's a really cool way of thinking about the work that we're doing. So we're all part of that history. So it's been an exciting year, a fun year in Sioux Falls. We'll get into more details on this stuff. In several months, we have a State of the City address, and we'll unpack some of this. Tomorrow, actually, we're going to have another press conference because we want to look ahead to what 25 is going to bring. We're going to actually be down at our fleet shop to talk about that because there's some applicable tie-ins there. But for now, I want to thank you guys for coming out and just let us spike the football on a few good things that happened this past year. And would certainly take any questions. I have a lot of my city leaders here too. If you have any questions about some things from this past year that I talked about or maybe didn't even talk about. Yeah.
Certainly, a lot of good things happened. A lot of, kind of, you mentioned spiking football for victory last year this morning. What were some of the challenges that you as mayor had to overcome and that the city had to overcome? And could you speak to sort of you talked a little bit about overcoming some challenges, but if you could go back and do stuff again, are there any things that you would have, liked
Sure.
to see happen?
Yeah, there's a few things that stand out challenges. One is the financial environment we're in and the economy we're in is tough. I just was in a meeting before this and got asked why our aquatics facilities that we want to build are not bigger. They need to be bigger. We're thinking too small. We need full-size Olympic pools in those. And I said, I would love that. Please let me know how to pay for that. And we have so many competing interests in this community that it's hard to keep up with it all. that was a swimming mob. I can talk to the curling club, I can talk to the figure skating club, I can talk to the pickleball people, I can talk to the biking community who wants us to get more dirt. I mean, the needs are tremendous. And we're only going to see probably shy of 2% sales tax growth this year. And so that's not even keeping up with inflation at that level. So we're being tasked to do more with less, which is really hard. And if you heard the governor's budget address, similar theme out in Pierre. So that's been a challenge. I mentioned homelessness in the social services corridor that's right behind us on 8th Street. Between this project and Schropp, and you've heard it a million times, we've got $500 million of investments that, how do we make sure we coexist as good neighbors to one another, right? And I'm very focused on making sure that this development can be safe and successful while still making sure we're caring for some of our most vulnerable residents. So that's a tension, that we can continue to manage. And then I think the last thing is sometimes as a recovering entrepreneur, I'm a little bit of a risk taker. I like to think big. I want to go. And there's times when you just have to pump the brakes, and people are always wanting you to pump the brakes. And there's always people who are naysayers and say, we shouldn't do this. Why are we doing this? I don't like it. I want to form a task force to study it because I think it's a bad idea. And that's hard for me because I can see the vision. I think a lot of big thinkers can see the vision. And so bringing people along with you, I think, is another challenge that I think I'll just always struggle with, but I think is very important.
I know tomorrow is a good look ahead, but since the governor talked yesterday, what's one thing the city as a whole really needs from the legislature this year?
Oh, that's a great question. The question was, what's one thing the city as a whole really needs from the legislature this year? I will say this is going to be more kind of a platitudinal statement. I need the legislature to stay out of culture war issues and focus on the core needs of delivering services to the city and the state, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of culture wars that we're going to see. And I get why those happen, but sometimes it forces us to take our eye off the core job we have of delivering services to our residents at the city level. So that would be my message and my hope, is that we stay focused on the tasks at hand. And we're in a divisive time right now. Politics is gross, and people are mad. And how do we just put some of that anger aside and say, okay, culture issues aside, what's the basic blocking and tackling we have to do to keep up with a city that's growing to 5,000 to 6,000 people a year? And keeping a couple books out of our library is not probably high on our priority list.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Books, library books.
Anything culture, but they take a lot of time, and the ROI isn't there for the community. Any other questions?
Can you elaborate more on the 911 contract discussion with the legislature?
Can I maybe ask one of the chiefs? I'm not versed enough on Lumen and how the 911 backbone works with the state, so I don't know which one of you guys. You look at it. That is an important topic because we've had 3 outages this past year, and none of those are outages because one of our people hit the F10 key when he shouldn't have. I mean, it's literally circumstances out of our control. In one case, a single fiber cut in Kansas City took down our 911 service for several hours. So, Chief.
Yeah. Absolutely. As the mayor said, the 911 provider is provided through the state. So the 911 Coordination Board is the one that ultimately enters into contract with. So as one of the largest deliverers of that service, we're working continuously with them to see not only what service do they provide, but how do we also do additional backup to make sure we have service.
Do you know how long that existing contract runs through?
I cannot answer that.
But that's a legislative issue, more than anything we can do locally, yeah. Okay, any other questions? Well, I want to thank the Canopy. We kind of made them scramble because we said, hey, we could do this press conference at City Hall, but nothing says what a great year we've had than the opening of this incredible facility and this incredible property. And so thanks to the staff at the Canopy for scrambling to do this. And look forward to seeing some of you tomorrow as we talk about some of the opportunities and challenges ahead in 2025. So thank you.